What's going on, guys? Welcome to another edition of the RPO College Football Podcast, your favorite college football podcast. And of course, I'm your humble host, Jerome Jones. And we got the man, the myth, the man, the legend, Mr. Ray Roberts. How you doing, Ray?
I'm good, Jerome. How are you?
I'm good, man. Good, man. It's not close enough. The season's not close enough. We
Yeah.
do only have, I think it said 8 Saturdays left, 7 Saturdays, something like that.
hmm
So it's getting closer. But 7, 8 Saturdays is almost 2 months away, man.
It is 53 days until college football season starts.
53 days. Ray's on it, man. Ray is on it. 53 days to college football. I can't wait. I know you guys cannot wait. I'm tired of just waiting. I just don't like it. I mean, it feels like forever that we have some college football. But I am excited about this season because we had a slew of news this last couple of days. Now, if you guys haven't been watching our podcast the last couple of days, I already said that this is going to happen where we're going to have a lot of recruits committing this next couple of weeks. Last week and this week was the middle and the midst of most of them. So we got a lot of big names that went down and things like that. So real quick, Ray, is there any quick names that surprised you or you got intrigued by anybody kind of committing this last week?
I don't know about what call it a surprise. Dante Moore did finally say that he told everybody he's going to go to Oregon now. The one guy that didn't surprise me, but I was hurt by it even more than Dante Moore is Jason Moore, defensive lineman, decided to go to Ohio State. And he was a guy that Notre Dame was pretty hot for. So,
Yeah, I noticed that too. I was like, either way, I don't I don't like either team, honestly. Like, let's just be honest. You guys already know this. I'm a Michigan fan. But at the same time, like, I'd rather a player go to Notre Dame than Ohio State, you know?
of
So
course.
when that happens, it's just like, uh, So
Yeah.
it really hurts my soul. I really wish it didn't happen, but it is what it is. Some names that I seen. Shout out to Popo Aguirre going to Miami. I know it's kind of predicted. He had always had Miami gear on. It seemed like a place that he would like, but congratulations to him, a guy that we know from being in Georgia a couple of times on some 707s. Got to interview him. Good guy, very athletic linebacker. So Miami getting some recruits, man. Miami getting some guys.
Yeah, well, we know they got Mario Cristobal back coaching the team now from he was at Oregon before, had been in Miami previously and then came back. And I know Miami, there's a lot of reports that the Hurricane are finally actually going to put some money into their program, and we'll see where it leads to.
Yeah, and the money always talk, man. The money's always talk. So people,
Absolutely.
they're gonna go where the money talks. But we got some very interesting topics today. Not a lot to do with actual football, but it's some fun little tidbits that we're gonna do. So let's go right into the first topic because we already kind of alluding to it, and that is the top recruiting classes. What schools are the top ones? So I'm gonna read off the top recruiting, and we're gonna kind of discuss it a little bit. So this is straight from 24/7. So shout out to those guys over there. They're doing some great stuff. And number one ranked, I'm going down. So I'm not going to do my usual going 10 to 1 or 1 to 10, and then we're going to discuss it. So number one is, of course, Ohio State. They got 18 commitments already,
Mhm.
2 5 stars and 14 4 stars. We got Notre Dame, who's raised team. They got 19 commits already, 1 5 star, but 16 4 stars. We got Clemson at number 3. They got 17 commits, 2 5 stars, 14 4 stars. We got Texas, who got 18 commits, three 3 5 stars and 9 4 stars. You got number 5, who's Tennessee, who's actually a surprise for a lot of people, and they actually came on strong very early in the recruiting. They got 2 5 stars and 6 4 stars. And some of you might be like, well, they only got 8, fives and 4. They got 10 3 stars. So that's why they're ranking so high so far. Then we got number 6, Penn State, which I personally feel like Penn State always has a good recruiting class, especially with the offensive defensive line, running backs. tight ends, whatever. Though I don't know with those positions, I feel like they always recruit really well with that.
Linebackers.
Linebackers,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
17 commits, one 5-star, 11 4-stars. We got Miami, who I just talked about, number 7. They got 14 commits, 1 5-star, 7 4-stars. LSU, who actually just rose up a few the last couple of days. They are number 8. They got 15 commits of 1 5-star, 10 4-stars. We got Georgia, of course, where I'm living now, my new residence. 13 commits, 1 5-star, 9 4-stars. And then number 10 is actually Arkansas, who is got 23 commits, the most of everybody. They got 23 commits. They don't have any 5-stars at all. So that's the thing. They got 7 4-stars, but they got 15 3-stars. They recruiting a lot of people. And real quick, just to name some teams that are not on this list. Oklahoma with 1 5-star. We got Alabama with 2 5-stars. We got Cincinnati, who just came off a really good season. Only got no 5-stars. Oregon, who's at 20, which I think that's gonna change a little bit, honestly. They got 1 5-star, 7 4-stars. They only got 11 commits at the moment, so that might be a thing. Michigan State, no 5-stars, only 12 commits, 8 4-stars. So that's big. And then obviously I'm gonna scroll all the way down to my team, Michigan, with only 11 commits, only 5 4-stars, no 5-stars. So, Ray, let's just talk about it. First and foremost, with all that information I just spilled at you, what stands out to you the most?
I mean, that not anything in particular that Ohio State always recruits well.
Yeah.
That Notre Dame was leading the pack for a while because they had the most commits at one point.
Yeah.
And then these other teams have caught up to them. And now, like, them not getting Dante Moore and Jason Moore probably cost them the number 1 ranking.
Yeah. So, guys, you got to remember, CJ Carr is a 2024 commit, so he don't count.
Right. He does not count for this season.
Ranking.
Exactly.
Correct. Yes. So if anybody like what happened to Notre Dame, that's what happened.
We got to remember Dante Moore is a top 10 player in the whole class.
Correct.
So he came out of the equation. That's quite a drop. That's quite a drop off. So
correct. Hey, it's not that bad because you guys are still number 2. You number 1 for a while. It just flip up with Ohio State. They got more 5-stars than you guys, which always going to make your ranker higher. Just in general. One thing that stood out to me is Arkansas, man. Number 10. They got a lot of commits. I mean, they had literally the most out of this top 10 was 23. The next closest is 19, which is Notre Dame.
Yeah.
So they got some commits. Baylor got 22. Oh, wow, I didn't even realize that. Yeah, Baylor got 22, but the thing about Baylor, no 5-stars and only 3 4-stars. So they get a lot of 3 stars, 2 stars. Yeah, they get a lot of the lower ended guys, which it's not a problem, honestly. Like, we got to remember, stars don't matter once you get into the field. But
correct.
We're just talking rankings right now. We just,
think of it like this: it's like when you draft guys in the NFL draft, and then of course teams are always going to have the guys they drafted early, the first 3 rounds are always going to be the guys they want to be the guy. Correct. But we see quite often where the lower ranked players are typically the better player. It just happens,
Definitely. Facebook user, I'm pretty sure that's Remy. I gotta check it again. But thank you for being on. We do appreciate you being on. He said, I don't understand the appeal going to Arkansas. They're an ascending team. They look like they're doing a little bit better with it. With that, to say that again, I don't know much about Arkansas, honestly. So, and that's just I'm not just talking about the university. I'm talking about the state as well. I don't know too much about Arkansas. So to say I don't see the appeal, I agree in that sense because I don't know much about it. But at the same time, like I can't just sit here and say no. That's Arkansas is a terrible place or whatever. I just can't see the appeal because I don't know the appeal, and that is Remy. So thanks again, Remy, for being on. Ray, you want to jump in on that conversation with Arkansas?
I mean, they're an SEC team, so
Yeah, they are. They are.
I mean, if you want to play in the SEC, you got teams moving way out of their areas to be in the SEC. So leave that for what it is. I mean, like I don't. Here's the thing, if you're an SEC player, would you rather go to Alabama or LSU or Auburn? Maybe, but maybe Arkansas is a team that said, yeah, we really want this kid. We're going to get him. At least you're playing in the SEC, man. You're playing at the highest level of competition. So it is what it is.
I agree. No, I agree. I'm trying to see because I don't know this offhand, so I apologize for not knowing this offhand. I'm trying to see who the coach is for Arkansas.
Sam Pittman.
Oh, okay, there you go. Thanks, Ray.
Yeah.
See, I know I should have just asked Ray. Ray already knows the answers. Ray's a encyclopedia over there. But yeah. So like some coaches, sometimes you don't know the coaches again. And then sometimes you go to have these visits and things like that, and you're like, wow, this coaching staff is really cool, actually.
It's like this, Jerome. So you play cornerback in high school football. You would obviously, if you were going to go to a college, you wouldn't go to Michigan. But say you're being recruited by Penn State or Michigan State or one of those other teams that maybe you don't really, would you go to them teams? Of course you would.
Yeah.
So you maybe rather go to Alabama or Texas Tech or or one. But you know what? Arkansas is recruiting me. They're an SEC team. I'm so fairly close to home. I'll go there.
Yeah, no, I agree with that logic right there too, because that's another factor into it. Like maybe they're not getting recruited. Maybe they did get an offer, but they're not being heavily recruited. It happens a lot. There's too many kids out there. Like
the weird thing you said about it that I'm surprised a little bit, and I'm not surprised, is that Alabama's not in the top 5. But we already know they're using the portal this year to
They are.
So
they are. They're only ranked 12.
That's my fear. Is Alabama going to start doing that every year? Is Ohio State, if they decide to start doing that, are they going to do that every year? We're going to turn college football into like NFL free agency if we're not careful.
Yeah, I think Alabama is going to take that route, honestly, because they seen how the landscape is. They seen how the playing kind of evened out a little bit. So it's going to be like that. I mean, like it or not, Ray.
That would really upset me that Nick Saban would go that lazy route, being that he's supposed to be the best coach of college football.
Yeah.
That would really upset me. I mean, not who cares or anybody else cares what upsets me, but again, we're turning it into free agency in the NFL. That's not college football. Okay.
I agree. Remy says Alabama always make the moves late every year. They do. Couple of weeks, they go from top 10 to 15 and rank like 1 and 2. You're definitely.
Here's the other thing. There's still like 40 some players out there that are either 4 or 5 star players.
Oh,
let's see again. Remy just said Alabama is one of them teams that sneak up. Like Ohio State kind of did it too. They only had like 8 commits a week and a half ago, and then they jump up. And now they have all these 5-star guys. And
and you know what it is, Ray? There's 2 factors in this as well. You got to remember, one, it's very early in the recruiting. It's still early. So a lot of these kids that are committing, they're committing early. Like they don't have until I think December to actually commit, and then I think January they actually sign. January, February they actually have to sign. So that's one thing. 2 is that when a lot of these kids are waiting to see where other people go first too. So when they see something, then a pile of them go to like maybe a particular team because they're like, oh, my friend is going there, or a guy that I see, I play 707 with, or a guy that, I see, we had good chemistry, just talking or whatever it may be the deal. They go to Ohio State or whatever, and then they'd be like, oh, I'm jumping ship too. This would be a good tandem, So that happens a lot too in college and recruiting as well. because they had that luxury of waiting and seeing how the landscape go. I mean, you seen what happened with Dante Moore. He wasn't ready to commit until CJ Moore committed. Once CJ Moore committed, then that's when he was like, all right, I can commit now because I know I don't have that. I mean, it's kind of weird to say it like this, but I don't have that competition and seeing CJ Moore cut my playing time. So it happens. It happens. Dante Moore went to Oregon because he seen Jaron Dickey and Ash Hoare, whatever that wide receiver is.
Yeah.
2 4-star receivers that went there. He was like, well, I can be throwing to them. Let's go to Oregon. So a lot of stuff happened.
At one time, it looked like Notre Dame was going to get.
Yeah.
The wide receiver we were just talking about, man.
Yeah. No. For real. Remy says a lot of these top 20 players haven't picked the schools yet. Will be attending Alabama guaranteed. Yeah.
I wouldn't doubt that either. I mean, but here's the thing: if I were them kids, I'm not saying that man. If your dream is to go to Alabama, that's great.
Yeah.
Also, remember this: that transfer portal could be your replacement next season if you're not careful.
That's true.
So you might want to be careful about what team you go to.
That's definitely true. That's definitely true. Yeah, man. So
Alabama's not going to wait for you to help them win a national title. They're going to go out and get someone who will do it now. So
definitely. No, I agree. All right. Real quick before we move on to our next topic, let's talk about some of these other teams because some of these other teams kind of snuck in there, moving up. So I want to talk about we already seen Texas have a good recruiting. Tennessee, who started off very hot, I think, in the recruiting. What's your take on Tennessee, Ray?
I think Tennessee is that one team that they could be a factor in the SEC in the next couple of years if they continue to recruit the way they had the last couple of years.
Yeah, they've been recruiting really well, and they're becoming a team that you might have to definitely keep an eye on. Let me get to Remy's comment real quick. Oregon's one school that has ridiculous money and ridiculous backing. Kids easily be brought there by money and facility. Yeah, they have a new facility. They got the uniforms. It's just sexy looking. To lack of a better word, it's a sexy looking school. Hey, yeah, they're gonna get guys. They're gonna get guys. They were good, very good a few years ago with the high power offense. So some players and teams still remember all that. So, just call it Nike U. Yeah, definitely Nike U. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, go back to Tennessee, man. They 2 5-stars, 6 4-stars. You wouldn't have thought this maybe a year, maybe 2 years ago that Tennessee.
Well, they have Josh Hopewell as their coach, smart kid, former college quarterback. So it runs a good offense. So I could see the intrigue of going there. Again, you're an SEC team. You're a team with a little bit of a tradition. I can think of worse places to play, Yeah,
Tennessee's definitely recruiting very well.
They are.
Yeah, they definitely are. All right, last 2 teams so we can move on to our next segment because that might take the rest of the podcast. But real quick, last 2 weeks, these 2 teams been killing it as far as recruiting, and now will be Miami and LSU. Both have 1 5-star. Miami has 7 4-stars, and LSU has 10 4-stars. So these 2 teams have been racking up names. If you've been looking online, Miami, LSU, it's been a lot of recruits going there very lately. What's your take on how that recruiting is going for those guys?
LSU, again, is a team with tradition. They're a team that has cycles of recruiting well. I don't like their new coach, but that's another subject for another day. He's been a quality recruiter in his time in college football at Notre Dame and Cincinnati. So
if you guys don't know who that is, that's Brian Kelly.
Correct. Everybody knows who it is, but he is he's been a solid recruiter. My problem with Brian Kelly at Notre Dame wasn't that he didn't recruit well; it was that he didn't recruit hard. If a player that he thought that wasn't necessarily a Notre Dame kid, or it was going to be a hard commit, he would just leave, he wouldn't try to get them still. And I think, honestly, that's the only difference between what he did and what Marcus Freeman's doing now. Marcus Freeman goes after everybody, doesn't worry about failing.
Correct.
I'm going to put my in the water on the shallow and the deep end and see what happens. I mean, I rather have that recruiting. Even if you fail, you only get 3 of them kids out of the 10 or out of the 8 or 9 or 10 that you recruited from these teams that you traditionally haven't recruited from. Isn't it worth it?
Definitely.
I mean,
Remy says, "I'm glad you brought up the U. They bringing in some 5 stars and a bunch of top 50 players. Yeah, definitely. And we talked about Oregon earlier. And how they're kind of a sexy team. They took a coach from Oregon, Cristobal. Now in Miami. Now they got a good recruiting class going in with them. Good start to rebuild for them. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, man. They talk about Miami real quick. They are bringing in guys. I just talked about Popo Aguirre, a couple of other guys that's down there. I don't think Miami ever been a between Miami and FSU just because of the history of those two teams. I don't think they've ever been a bad recruiting team. They've just been bad with coaching, to be honest. Like
that's per basic, but you know what, though, Jerome? When you don't have the right coach, recruiting is much harder.
Correct.
And they were a team. Miami was a team that didn't seem like they were interested in really putting a lot of money into their program. Mm-hmm. Now that has changed in the last few months.
Correct.
And you got to remember when they were in their heyday, 80s, 90s, they didn't have to throw money. They were keeping all the players in South Florida or all the players down there were going to Miami or going to Florida State. Well, now they've started going to Alabama or LSU or Auburn or even Ohio State. Where before it used to a lot of them kids would stay down there.
Yeah.
But you do have the right coach now. Cristobal has a track record. I actually thought about putting him in my top coach last week when we did our top coaches. The only reason I didn't is he's still fairly new at coaching. He doesn't have a great record. It's been okay, but it's not been great. So I think he's a good coach and he's a very good recruiter. I think that he will put some bite back into the Miami program. But until he does, it still hasn't happened. So
again, why wouldn't you, especially when you got a new coach down there and the culture look like it's changing? Why wouldn't you want to go to Miami, Florida?
South Beach, man.
You got you got the players back you with Avery, you got Ray Lewis, all those guys.
A lot of people know.
Area.
Who doesn't want to be on South Beach, especially right now? Anyway, a lot of people know I'm a Dolphins fan. So I get a lot of Miami Hurricane information thrown at me, even though I'm not really a fan. But I hear a lot of stuff about them because of the podcasts I listen to, because most of the people that write for the Dolphins actually cover the Hurricane also.
Yeah, no, I agree. Remy says, like I said earlier, a lot of these young guys these days go to sexy schools with the sexy facilities. Miami, being a private school, lacks that, but good to see them back on track a bit. Yeah, and I agree. It's easy to attract a young man to go to Miami. You know what I mean? It's easy. But they are, like you say, they are a good college football, and it's good. It is good that this is good for college football to have Miami back in the mix and having some different teams. It's always good to have different teams to seed a little bit. So and again, this is not the end of recruiting. I mean, this is probably it's gonna start dying down soon with a lot of the big commits and stuff like that. Some of it is gonna probably be at the end of the season, which is fine. So we're gonna see a upswing tick, and some players are going to have some random times and stuff like that. So this is not a final thing, but I just wanted to discuss it and talk about it a little bit. But let's get to our next topic because this actually stems to our topic last week. So if you haven't seen our podcast last week, you can either stay here, rest, which is fine, or go back, listen to our podcast last week. We was talking about conferences and stuff like that because it's going to stem right into our conversation today, which is we're going to do a little conference matchmaking. So we're going to play a little matchmaking game for all you lovers out there. we're gonna play a little matchmaking game. So I seen this on online on Twitter, where right after the UCLA and USC moving to the Big Ten, and then somebody, and I can't remember who it was, so I apologize for not giving you the credit for this idea or things like that. But whoever it was, they put all the teams together, took four conferences and took four conferences that they liked and made it basically one mega four conference league. And that's what we're gonna basically be doing here today. So we're gonna get right into it. But before we get into what teams are what, we're gonna announce what conferences that we have. So, right, I can start off for you, and then you can tell me what conferences you have. Again, we only having four conferences. It's gonna be four conferences. And then we're gonna tell you what teams are in each conference. So obviously, can't go anywhere without SEC. So I'm just gonna knock that out the way now. SEC is gonna be in there no matter what. Everybody, SEC is the conference. I'm gonna go with Big Ten as the next one. I think that was a little obvious too. I'm a Big Ten guy, so I might be a little biased with it, but I think that you have to have a Big Ten conference. Next one I'm gonna say is the ACC. I'm gonna put them in there in the mix because they have a lot of good teams too. But just letting you know, I switched around a lot of teams in these, so just letting you know, it's gonna be a little weird for you guys. And then the last conference I have is actually the Pac-12. Just demographically, it makes sense having one West team, one East team, one North, and one South. So Big Ten, SEC, SEC, and a Pac-12 for me. All right, Ray, let me hear your four.
Well, again, I'm going to start off like you did. I can't crush the SEC, so I kept them intact. I did add some different teams to the conference, but I had the SEC. And then I had the Big Ten. Being from this area, I would never dissolve that. I don't want anybody to blow up my computer or nothing. And then actually, I did something differently. I completely got rid of the ACC.
I don't blame you.
I took the teams from the ACC and I added them to other conferences.
Okay.
And I still have the Big 12 and the Pac-12.
Okay. So we had the same conferences except for ACC and Big 12. So Ray, you got Big 12. I got the ACC. So let's get to the conferences. So obviously both of us have SEC. So Ray, let's start reading off our conferences. I'm gonna let you go first on this one. Who you got in there?
Well, I had the SEC. I'm going to give you the eastern part. Now, the difference in the SEC, there's 7 teams in each conference or each division of the of the two conferences. I have 8. I expanded them by 1 on each side of the East and the West. Okay. So in the East side, I still have Georgia, I have Tennessee, I have Florida, and I have South Carolina. Okay. And like I said, I absolved the ACC. So I took 4 teams actually took 6 teams from that conferences and added them to the SEC.
Ooh.
Now, the SEC East will now have Clemson, NC State, Miami, and North Carolina.
Ooh, okay.
The western part of it, again, will be Alabama. And I added Florida State. Will still be Arkansas, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Auburn, LSU, and I added Georgia Tech.
Oh, okay. Nice. I like it. All right, so I didn't do it like you. I didn't separate the conferences, so I just mushed them all together and things like that. Another thing I did was I kept the teams that just not officially moved, but already announced that they moved. So I didn't move. Obviously, Texas and Oklahoma are going to be in the SEC. I left them in there. So the teams I have are the original team. All the original teams on the SEC actually stayed for me. So obviously,
one other thing before we stop, I should also say that I removed Missouri and Texas A&M from the SEC.
Yeah, I actually forgot about Missouri. I actually don't have them on my list, but let's just pretend I have them on my list now.
I moved them to other conferences, but I took them out of that conference.
Correct. No, okay, cool. Well, I still have them in the same conference. Like I said, I added to that conference. So I'm gonna add them now. Missouri, FSU, Texas, Tennessee, Georgia, Kentucky, South Carolina, Vandy, Bama, obviously, Arkansas, Auburn, LSU, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and Texas A&M. I kept all those teams in there because I like a lot of those rivalries. I think it's really strong. Some of the teams that I added on, obviously, I said Texas already because they already in there.
I can only have one crybaby per coach, so I had to take Texas A&M away from that one. So.
Gotcha. All right. Okay. That makes sense. So I got Oklahoma and Texas in there, like I said, because they're already committed in there. I actually brung over Oklahoma State. I like that Oklahoma State rivalry, so I didn't want to take away from that, so I kept them in the SEC, and I did actually add in Clemson as well. So that's 4 teams I added to the SEC. I think it's already kind of crowded as a conference as it is, which is cool and great. So I left it very vague to what it is already. But let's get to our next one, Ray. We're gonna get to our Big Ten.
Okay.
Ray, did you have something to say about that real quick? What I had?
No, it was fine. I just again, I like Clemson in the SEC because of course they're down in the Carolina area, and they recruit like an SEC team. So
exactly,
take them out of the ACC where they don't belong anyway and put them in a real conference.
Correct. No, I agree. All right, we're gonna do Big Ten now. So I'm gonna start off with that one. Obviously, you got the original Big Ten teams. I got the 2 teams that just committed to the conference, which is USC and UCLA. I don't think I added anybody else honestly to this one. I didn't. So you got the original ones: Indiana, Maryland, Michigan State, Ohio State, Penn State, Iowa. I didn't pick Iowa State. So I actually meant to pick Iowa State also. I was going to add Iowa State to it. Illinois, Minnesota, Nebraska, Northwestern, and Purdue. So that's my teams right there. Ray, any difference? I mean, obviously the 2 that just committed, I got Indiana. I mean, Iowa State. I'm sorry, I'm blinking. Iowa State. I bring them over because I don't have a Big 10. I mean Big 12. What do you think about that list, Ray?
I like it. I just didn't. I thought about putting Iowa State in a conference with Iowa. It just didn't work out that way. And I would never. I know what's going to happen with UCLA and USC, but I would never take them out of.
I wouldn't do that. Yeah. So Ray, me and Ray did it differently. Me and Ray did it differently. Ray's doing it the way he would do it.
I'm doing it. You know what the difference is? I'm not a lawyer. I'm doing what I think will be best for college football.
No, okay.
Not what's best for money in my pockets. What's best for college football. So.
I love it, Ray. I really do. All right, cool. So, who do you have in your Big Ten?
In my Big Ten, I have the big. Well, of course, I have an East and a Western side, like the conference does, and I have 8 teams in each side of the conference. Okay, and the first one in the East part, I have the Big 4, or what I consider the Big 4 in that conference: Ohio State, Michigan State, Penn State. Now, I added to the eastern side of the conference 4 ACC teams. And I added Louisville, Pittsburgh, Boston College, and Virginia.
Ooh, I like it. It makes sense.
In the western side, well, geographically, it does make sense. Yeah. Again, not lining my pockets. What's best for the league? So, And in the western side, I have Wisconsin, Iowa, Purdue, Nebraska, Minnesota, Northwestern, Illinois, and Virginia Tech.
I like it, Ray. I like it. I like how the dynamic of you having the Big 12 and I having the ACC is affecting our conferences because like you can see where I took this there, I took that, and we're gonna get to the ACC and the Big 12.
I would never say nothing bad about the ACC, but we know it's top heavy. The top 2 teams are really good, and everybody else kind of falls behind by the wayside.
I agree.
But I just did it for that reason. I think it would be cool if Pittsburgh were in the Big 10.
I think so too.
I do. Right? I think when I was a kid, it would have made the Pittsburgh, who at that time with Tony Dorsett and then Dan Marino was one of the best college teams in college football. To be a natural rival against Ohio State and Penn State would have been huge money back then.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I'm not
All
against. I am for making money. I'm just not made. I'm not for like that's the only thing that's important.
Yeah. You're not trying to sacrifice.
No, like I think
just
honestly, I think to have, like I said, to have Pittsburgh, even Boston College plays in the ACC, but they're a physical team that would probably fare better in the Big Ten.
So that's funny because funny you said that. I'm gonna spoil one of my teams that's in the ACC. Obviously, I kept Boston in the ACC, but I was actually thinking about putting them in the Big Ten. Actually,
I just think like if you look at their tradition, how they've played, they're a Big East team. They're a Big Ten type team, man. They really when they're good.
Correct.
So
All right, let's get to your Pac-12. You got Pac-12, right? Yeah.
I do. I have a Pac-12 and I have a Big 12. So you want me to do Pac-12 since you did that? We'll do that first. Okay.
Do Pac-12.
Okay. In my Pac-12, I kind of kept it intact how it is now. I didn't remove the USC or UCLA because 2 years from now they'll be wishing they didn't do that. I'm going to do what I think is best again for college football. So I have Oregon in the north side. I have Oregon State, which I think is perfect. Washington, Cal, Stanford, Washington State, and Fresno State I took from the Mountain West and made that a Pac-12 team.
I like that, actually.
Okay. Now, in the south side, I have Utah, USC, UCLA, Arizona State, Arizona, Colorado, and again, I took from the Mountain West, I took Boise State, and now they are in the Pac-12.
Okay. I like that too. Actually,
right. A natural rival with Colorado, I just think it would be a good idea.
Right. I picked Boise State in there too.
Good. I like that.
Hey,
I think they're a team that recruits well. They can get in that conference.
They do.
You know?
I agree. All right, so I'm gonna rate off my Pac-12, the guys that are stayed there, obviously. So Oregon State, Stanford, Washington State, and Cal, Arizona State, Colorado, UCL. I'm sorry, I don't have UCLA anymore. I have USC anymore. I have Utah, but I did add some teams in it because now I don't have a Big 12, so I added a couple of Big 12 teams in there. So I put Baylor in there. I put TCU. I put Texas Tech in there. Kansas State, Kansas, and Houston. And we already talked about Boise State. So I actually put Houston in the Pac-12 as well to put over there. So I just think, trying to pick some of those Texas teams will bring a lot of rivalries. You lost probably the biggest Texas team, which is Texas. They're going to SEC. So why not bring most of the other Texas teams in? You got Baylor, TCU, Texas Tech, Houston, all those teams. Let them duke it out and make a kind of a Texas rivalry. I thought that would be really cool to have that in the Pac-12. So that's how I kind of structured it. I've seen, Kansas was kind of close to. I thought that, I feel like Kansas State they're not great teams, but they're teams that, make some moves here and there sometimes, which is
they're
fine.
really weird how in it, like Kansas, you think up tempo offense, and Kansas State, you think defense.
Yeah, no, it is. It really is. It really is like that, right? It really is.
Yeah.
And then Boise State, like everything that Ray said, Boise State's just a good conference, and it makes sense to have them over there with Colorado as a rivalry. So,
listen, you know what? Honestly, Jerome, I would like to see how they would compete in a conference better than Mountain West. To be honest with you,
yeah, I agree because they've been ahead of the Mountain West like forever. So why not put them over there, give them some tougher competition?
Yep.
I just think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So let's get to our last conferences. Obviously, I have the ACC. Ray has the Big 12. I'll start it off, Ray, with this one. So my ACC, obviously we talked about Clemson leaving them now. I think I've talked about a couple of other teams that kind of left the ACC. So the way I kind of structured it is it's a lot of mid-tier to lower-tier kind of teams, and this probably be the weakest conference of all four of them. But I'm okay with that because now you kind of level out the playing field just a little bit with those guys and let them kind of duke it out. So, with that being said, Boston's still in there, Louisville's still in there, NC State, you got Syracuse, we got Wake Forest, we got Duke. I kept Miami, I kept UNC, kept Pitt, Virginia Tech. I actually put Rutgers in this. Rutgers, which
Yeah,
I think will help them get that relevancy because them in the Big Ten right now. I mean, and I think they're going to be fine later on, but right now in the Big Ten, they're like one of the lower teams. I think if you bring them down, that'd be great. I got West Virginia. I actually picked a team that I think should be in this kind of tier a little bit. Two teams actually that should be in this tier a little bit because I think that it will help them out to see how good they are. And let me reference this before I say the last three teams. I think that if you take this kind of concept with NCAA and you make it to like a soccer kind of style where, hey, if you're not good in 5 years, you have a chance to get knocked down. If you're good in, if the other conference and you got a team that's been dominating for the last 5 years or at least relatively really good, you have a chance to go up. I like that kind of concept, like how soccer is. I think that's really cool. Like maybe 5 to 10 years, something like that, and that kind of buffer. I don't know. I don't know the primary the amount of years that you would do, but I think like doing something like that will make it very intriguing. And then you kind of knock down teams that be like, all right, like, dude, come on, man, Duke haven't done it in years. Let's knock them down. Things
I'm
like
gonna be
that. I
honest.
think that'd be cool.
Yeah, I agree part with what you said, Jerome. Honestly, I took Rutgers, Duke. I completely took them out of the Big Four conferences.
No, I agree.
I don't. They don't compete. I'd
Yeah,
rather they be in a conference where they can compete. To be honest,
I 100% agree with you, Ray. So I do agree with you saying. But the reason why I did want to keep them in is for these last three teams. Cincinnati, I picked them in here. They're not in the same realm as the other two teams I'm about to talk about, but it's just they're not always as good as they were last year. They're usually a team that we don't really talk about and things like that. So they had an anomaly type of year last year. Did really well. I think they still will do better. So I think having them in this format kind of ACC will allow them to keep being able to grow and continue to get better in a sense.
I think what you saw with them is that Cincinnati is a good program. Luke Fickell is a very good coach.
Yeah,
They're going to be one of them teams that like this year they're not going to be as good, but maybe 2 years from now, after having some guys on the program for 3 years, then like last year they kind of get ahead of steam and then they come out and they have that one good year. And then they're back to the drawing board again for 2 years. And
yeah.
if
And
Luke
I feel
Fickell,
like
honestly, with Cincinnati's history, if Luke Fickell can keep that cycle, then he's done a very good job.
correct. And that's why I wanted to keep this kind of like this would be like the lower tier of the other three conferences,
Right.
but like it'll allow those teams to kind of like duke it out and develop over the years too. So that's why I have the next two teams, which I would be excited to see these two teams in there. Coastal Carolina and Appalachian State. I think those two teams would be really cool to see them in a higher tier kind of, conference because they've been dominating the conference the last 2 years. It's been them two and the Sun Belt, right? Yeah, Sun Belt for a while. Those two just duking it out. So this is where I come up with that kind of concept where if you have maybe two programs, the top two programs in one, and then the lower two in the other one, and keep swapping every 5-10 years. I think that would be a cool concept. I like how
You know what would probably stop that though, Jerome? When these teams enter conferences, they pay money to do it.
Yeah, that's true.
So what would they do? Like if you say you have
if you enter a good conference, I mean, why wouldn't you want to pay that money? I mean,
yeah, but if they want to knock you out of that conference, why would you not want your money back?
True. I mean, if you were the conference, why wouldn't you? I would give it back to them to get a better team.
Well, I agree with you, but you know, money, dude. Once you get money, you don't give it back. That's not. This is different. I kind of get communist saying I think that we shouldn't be making money. That sounds really communistic.
But right, if you think about the concept of like what we're talking about now, if a conference drop two teams, they're giving the money back, but they're getting the money back by getting the teams
That would be,
upgraded. So
you know what it is, though, Jerome. Yeah, I agree. That what you just said sounds perfect. But I would hate to be the guy to telling like a Boise State, yo, yeah, we really thought it was a good idea for you to join our conference, but we really don't like you anywhere. You're not holding up your end of the bargain.
no, and yeah, I agree with that. But Ray, you got 5 to 10 years to do that, though. Come on, 5 to 10 years. That's some time. I mean, not in the sense of
years
coaching, but
like when you've turned over your roster 3 times, dude, it's not that much time.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
Really
I
not,
agree
man.
with that. It's I agree with that. Maybe 10 years. Every 10 years, we'll
10 years is more like 5 years. That's like 2 rosters, dude. That's like,
That's too close. That's too close. Yeah.
You need to, like we said, like look at LSU. LSU, no one knew that LSU was going to be what they were that year. They had Joe Burrow, but they were a good program. And Joe Burrow caught fire.
Yeah.
And up until then, LSU was that team that had really good defenses, and then they put a bunch of good recruits on the offensive side together, and Joe Burrow, and it was like, wow, look at this team. But they're never going to be that good. They're not going to be that good again for at least another couple of years.
Yeah.
And finding that guy that's Joe Burrow is not easy, man. And you could look at you look at Clemson. They had 2 really good quarterbacks, back to back now.
Mm-hmm.
And Deshaun Watson, and then before that, though, they had nobodies.
No, I agree. I think that's a big factor into it because, but I think I don't know. I think it's cool. It's really cool to have that. So I'm just gonna.
No, I like the idea of having teams that like dominate a conference move up. Maybe that's a great idea. I do really like that idea, and I do that. I actually, if like I just told you, I did move like 2 teams or a couple of teams from better teams from conferences where they're not really they're just way better than the conferences they're in.
Yeah,
I mean Clemson's one of them. Clemson's too good to be in the ACC. They really are.
Yeah, they are
stupid, but they're too good to be in that conference.
Yeah, and that's why I put them in the SEC. But Ray, we got one more conference. Let's get to your last conference, the Big 12.
I have the Big 12, and I pretty much again did not remove anybody. I know Texas and Oklahoma was going to move eventually, but I still have them in my Big 12 because it's my Big 12. Okay, so
alrighty.
All right, I have Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, Baylor, Texas, Kansas State, Iowa State, and I removed Houston from the AAC and put them in the Big 12.
All right, so we both moved Houston.
Yes,
nice.
Yes, and that's the north part of the Big 12. The south part of the Big 12, I have Texas A&M now from the SEC. And here's the thing: they would pretty much have their way in this conference right now, but I think it would give the Big 12 more bite too.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like you look at the Oklahoma is good, but they haven't really been really good in 3 years now. Texas hasn't been really legitimate in 5 or 7 years now.
Yeah.
So since what's his name left there, and Colt McCoy, that was the last time they were really good.
Colt McCoy.
And so okay, so then after that, I have TCU, West Virginia, Texas Tech, Kansas, Missouri, and I took Cincinnati and put them in this conference also.
Ooh, Missouri and Cincinnati. I like it.
Yeah.
Okay. Ray, I like your team. I mean, I love your conference. Ray.
I do think like if you look at what I kind of tried to do, you actually have 4 power conferences now.
Mm-hmm.
You do. No. You have conferences where not one team should dominate.
Yeah. And
that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for good football.
No, and I agree. And I try to do the same exact thing, Ray, where I try to level out the playing field with some of the teams. If I took a big like I said with ACC, we took Clemson out of the ACC and been in SEC because I felt like they had that competition to play with them. So now I looked at ACC. I'm like, man, they look a little light right there. There's some teams that could be on the rise, like UNC, Pitt, Miami. Which those 3 teams will probably be at the top. But then you got like a whole bunch of other teams down there. So that was like, all right, let me pick some other teams that are doing better in the other conferences, but not like great teams, and kind of let those teams duke it out. And I think that would be cool. I like your Big 12, right? And I like this segment, man. I didn't know how this segment was gonna go. I really had fun with it. It's pretty cool.
Only thing I thought about doing that I didn't do, where I really wish I could have found a way to do it. I would love to put USC in the SEC.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that would work way
USC,
better
right?
than them being in the Big Ten. I just think it would work way better than them being in the Big Ten. I do.
Yeah. I agree with that. It just I don't know. I wouldn't know what to do. I mean, I like I said, I left it how it currently is, and then I just added other teams. This would be
Yeah.
something I was doing like maybe like the next 10 years, start this and then start that 10-year progress kind of thing. I think that'd be cool to do something like that. It'd be interesting to see if this happens because the way that is looking, man, these teams are just jumping.
The only other thing that I thought about doing was trying to put Notre Dame in a conference, but I don't.
I
thought
thought about
it numerous times, but I can't come up with a reason why Notre Dame would want to do it.
Yeah.
I can't come up with a reason what conference I want it to be. Yeah. And I don't honestly, I don't know if because everybody like, well, who's going to pay them the most money? I mean, I think any team would like to have Notre Dame in their conference, and they probably would pay Notre Dame or make sure Notre Dame found enough money that they could try to make it happen. I just don't see where it benefits them anywhere.
I agree.
Except for not playing a conference game at the end of the year is the only drawback about it.
Correct.
Because teams like sometimes I think the polls like forget about them because they didn't play that last week.
Yeah,
I think that hurts them a little bit. It doesn't hurt them when they're good, but it can hurt them when they're borderline. It can hurt them then.
I think it honestly in our format, them being independent might hurt them. It might hurt them because now you got a lot more teams that are a little bit more evenly matched and it's more condensed. So I think that if you get a SEC, like let's say we got, let me talk about the ACC now. We got Clemson in there now. We got Texas in there now. Oklahoma. We got who are rising teams. Those two other teams. Georgia and Alabama. We got the LSU's of the world, the Auburns, the Texas A&Ms that we've been saying that they're going to be better this year. We got all those teams in one conference now. It's going to make it hard to be like, oh, Clemson lost one game, but it was against Georgia. Oh, Clemson lost one game, but it was against Alabama or Texas or whatever. And then you have that undefeated Notre Dame game, but they didn't have that conference game. Who are you going to put in? The team that plays somebody already? And I do think that, Notre Dame will still play good teams.
It probably would depend on strength of schedule.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. Like, if they were to bring it in to a 4 conference now these conferences are a lot stronger than before. So that means their schedules are going to be a lot more stronger. It's hard for me to say, like, especially with these SEC teams and the way we structured it, it's hard for me to be like, all right, an undefeated Notre Dame game or team who probably play a good amount of ACC teams, SEC teams, even Big Ten teams, obviously. But not all of them were like high quality ones because they're not going to always play the high quality guys all the time. Where you have teams in the same conferences that are stronger now.
That's why you see people that are Notre Dame fans, like when Notre Dame is like playing these teams that aren't really great teams because it's like, well, why are we doing that? That's not going to help us. It's not going to help us. Why are we doing that? But we know why we're doing it because the team wants a nice payday too, and Notre Dame can supply that.
Correct.
Honestly, if I had my druthers and I said to me, Notre Dame has to join a conference, it would be the Big Ten.
I agree.
It would be the Big Ten.
I'd say either the Big Ten or the SEC, but I think the SEC would be a little. It just feels still weird to me. But
why would it work? Because you could be a team like Notre Dame's college basketball team competes in the ACC.
Yeah.
And you could be that and be a Big Ten team in college football. But I don't know how that would work if you're an SEC team in football and an ACC team in basketball.
Yeah.
It seems a little dirty to me.
No, I agree. And
but if you're a college basketball team, you want to play the best competition, and we all know that's the ACC.
Correct.
And if you want to, so you say, well, Notre Dame wants to compete against the best in college football too. They do, but geographically, it doesn't make sense for them to play in the ACC or the SEC. Where to compete against Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State, Wisconsin, Iowa, every year or two would do them a lot of good. And geographically, they would make a lot of money with each other.
No, I agree, man. I agree. So, man, that's some great stuff, right? That was a great little on top of that we got there, man. That was fun. I had fun with it. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. With us doing this conference matchmaker. Let us know who you would pick or what teams you would pick. Put in the comment section right below. You can hit that QR code right there. I always do this wrong. I can't get to it for some reason. That QR code right down there. Hit that QR code right down there. You can scan that to get there you go, Ray. Thank you. I appreciate the assistance. You can scan that to follow our YouTube channel or all the social media. Hit us up on Twitter. Hit us up on YouTube when it's go on a replay. Put your comments down. Let us know, hey, what team would you pick and what 4 conferences would you have? And then what teams would you pick inside those conferences? Make sure you let us know what you would do with that, because I'm very curious what everybody else thinks. I know everybody's decisions will be different and things like that. I'm very curious to see that. If you do that, we'll put it on next week's podcast. So definitely put it up there for us in there. So definitely make sure you check us out on all social medias. Like I said, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We have all great content. We got football stuff. We just interviewed some NFL players like Muhammad Sanu, Sean Witherspoon. All those interviews are up on our YouTube channel. Yeah, Ray, I forgot to tell you.
Muhammad Sanu even in the league anymore?
Yeah, he is. Technically,
wow.
He was on the 49ers last year.
Wow.
Yeah. So right now he's a free agent, I believe, but I think he's gonna get a late ad. He's still up there. I think he's 32, so he's still older.
Someone will pick him up. There's a bunch of guys out there just kind of floating right now.
Yeah. I mean, Odell Beckham's still out there, so it's a couple of guys that are still floating out there, and they're gonna be late season, mid-season pickups, just to add in for somebody that's injured or whatever. It happens every year. So I think he's going to be on another team. But
if I were him, I would just resign with the Rams, dude.
Hey, why not? Everybody's going there.
Because, they're the team you played your last game with last year. You're coming off an injury. I mean, unless you want to just get low ball
back.
Well, yeah, and they want him back. And why would you want to go to a team that's not going to compete? And the only team that's going to pay you more money than that are the ones that are just looking for guys because they have nobody. Do you want to go really play? Odell Beckham doesn't seem like the kind of guy that wants to just go out and play football just to make a couple dollars. I think he does like winning. I do.
He does.
Yeah.
He was like when he got injured in that Super Bowl, man was crying the entire time on the sideline. It shows
good for him. He got to play. He scored a touchdown. Got his ring.
He could have had MVP. I tell you,
really, he started out on fire. He did.
Yeah, I 100% agree. So, guys, thank you guys for checking us out again. If you want to hear more NFL news, we got NFL with the Air It Out podcast is doing some great stuff. They'll be on tomorrow, so that's Thursday, 6 o'clock Eastern time, I believe. So make sure you check that out. That's going to be live as well, and you can always go back on YouTube and check out the old podcast on there as well. Hit us up on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Hit us up on Spotify where we got all our podcasts and interviews on there. And as well, hit up our website, which has everything on there. So if you want everything, it's on our website, insidethehashes.com. So once again, thank you guys for checking us out. It's been a great and fun podcast. I had fun. I hope you gust had fun. I'm your humble host, Ron Jones. This is Ray Roberts. Thank you guys so much. I hope you have a great week. Stay safe, and we'll see you again next week. Peace.